No, I think the social determinants is the key, in fact. It's the rationale, it's the evidence, and there's plenty of literature around that. We've had a room full of people, you know, leaders in the world, leading thinkers in the world in terms of the impact and the effect, and indeed what is it's in itself the social determinants of health. But prior to that, the Aboriginal community-controlled medical services in Australia have a long history, 30 years plus, have really been at the forefront of that kind of thinking. And so we first started talking about this over 30 years ago. But now it's very much in vogue, and people like Michael Marmot has done his wonderful study, you know, the Whitehall study as it's become known. And hopefully from this symposium, that government and decision makers and policy makers will refer to this symposium and everything that's written down as some kind of ready reference when they are making decisions and planning new policy. I think the social determinants of health and the social determinants anyhow is a key. It's an entree point into dealing with health, education, housing, employment, poverty, racism. It's all articulated there. It's all evidence-based. There's been fantastic research. It's been done both here in Australia and overseas. So there's no excuse for us not to do something. We can close the gap, and I don't think it will take. If we're serious about this, it shouldn't take as long as we're saying. In fact, I think we can have dramatic impact if we choose to do one or two things over the next few years. I think we can have a dramatic impact on people's at least emotional and social well-being, if not their health as such, in between 5-10 years. No, that's the worry. I don't think it is. You know, Australians are really bright, and we also, as a nation, have been at the forefront. We've been very much part of this international, this global discussion, this discourse, this dialogue on the social determinants of health. But it seems as though our policy makers and our decision makers, and more importantly, our politicians, don't seem to know that. So this intellect is in a bubble over here, and government is over here in another bubble, and it's very difficult to get the government to burst, to come into this bubble. So there's no reason for Australia. We lead the world in this kind of thinking. Now, why we're not putting it into practice here at home, where we really need to close this 17-year gap here between us, Aboriginal people, and non-Aboriginal people, we can do it really quick. We know how to do it. We can tell you probably, without too much trouble, how much it's going to cost, who's best placed to do it. So there's no reason for us not to do it. We can do it. There's a lot of talk. I'm getting a bit anxious about the talk. There's a report, a review that's been is now handed down on the effect of COAG and this all-of-government approach. It's called, and we know it doesn't work. It's a nice idea and it should work, but in reality it doesn't. So I'm not very confident that that is the vehicle. I think the vehicle is getting this government to understand, to fully understand what the social determinants of health are, and to pick one or two things. Now they have in their talking, the Prime Minister has recognised the importance of early childhood development. There's no doubt about that. He's spoken very eloquently about that. But we're not doing anything. Now the workforce implications alone for that are really profound and far-reaching. But I don't see any evidence that we're actually doing that. And as Rex Wild and I said in one of the recommendations in The Little Children Are Sacred, that we were very provocative with this one in particular because we wanted to be. We said that every 3-year-old, Aboriginal 3-year-old in the Northern Territory must attend an early childhood development centre in 2000 at the school year beginning in 2008. Now we said that because there's been a lengthy report called Learning Lessons that came out in the Northern Territory over 9-10 years ago that said that. But in 9 years, nothing has happened. So we said it again. So there's a lot of talk around but very little is being done in terms of practice.
How crucial is the involvement of Aboriginal controlled health organisations?
Absolutely pivotal. These services have been around for over 30 years. A lot of Aboriginal people know a lot about Aboriginal health. The AMSs now, the Aboriginal Medical Services or Health Services, they are part of the health environment now. Although we are given Commonwealth monies and some state monies, not a lot, but some states do better than others. But they are very much part of the mainstream system. The difference is that we're delivering services in a way that's more appropriate to the client group and to our communities who use our services. So they play a pivotal role. There's no doubt about that. And in some places and in some locations and even in some small towns, the AMS, the local AMS, is the only medical service that's offered to the communities. And those communities might be non-Aboriginal as well as Aboriginal. Tennant Creek, for instance, springs to mind. It's very difficult to get, general practice doctors in Tennant Creek. And in the past, Broome also, Brahms there was the only sort of medical service, and all sorts of people attended those. After the apology by the Prime Minister, I think there was a sense of Aboriginal people were much more optimistic and a bit more hopeful, and we're kind of still waiting. It was the first step, but I'm wondering where the second step is going to come from. What is the government going to do now? Is he really serious about early childhood development? And if he is, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done in terms of implementing that. So I'm getting a little bit anxious that the optimism that we all felt and the hope that we felt as the result of that very generous and very sincere and long-awaited apology that he made on behalf of the nation, which was fantastic. It really was only step one, so there needs to be some move and shift and some of that energy put into implementation of closing the gap, as they say. I'm getting a bit nervous about using that as well. It rolls off the tongue, very, very neatly and nicely, but what does it mean? How are we going to do it, and who is going to do it, and how much is it going to cost? And let's just get on with it.